Michael Cates, 76Y30, Small Arms Repairman, Supply Officer, 1st of the 14th Artillery, 198th Brigade, Americal Division, stationed in Chulai for 335 days. Got in early out to go back to college, even though I was an F student. So why would I want to go back to college? Had a rebirth of sorts in Vietnam. It was a wild trip. It was in a positive sense of the word, to the most part. We started quite different than most soldiers that went to Vietnam. I was with a brigade that went by ship. We went, my preparation for Vietnam really came in college, even though I was an F student when I left. I learned a lot about speech communication, and that would play a part in saving my life more than once in Vietnam. And the ship ride from San Francisco to Da Nang was 17 days by ship. We hit a squall the second day out, and we lost a young man from the 42nd Infantry, and he was either washed off the back of the ship or he was jumped off, suicide. We had a burial at sea. The third day out on our way to Vietnam. We haven't even got to the war yet, and we're losing people. Some people said, oh, that's not a good omen. And what's an omen? Come on. Everything's fine on the ship, no difficulties. Well, at night, maybe about the 14th, 15th day out, 12th or 13th day out, we started having get-togethers on the ship in the evening, and where they would ask for people who can play the guitar, sing, tell jokes, whatever, and just to kind of get us in a relaxed mood. And there was about 2,500 of us on the troop ship. And toward the end, just before we got to the Philippines, we stayed a week in the Philippines, just lifting weights and working out, and never could leave the base. And that was Subic Bay. But back to the ship and the entertainment at night. Just give me a full magazine, one of the songs. Give me a full magazine with M16 with a full magazine. Kill them fast as I can. And everybody would laugh. And oh, that's crazy. That's wild. But you would sing along, and you'd sing along, and you'd sing along, and you'd think, yeah, they're saying this for a reason. When we get there, better be ready to shoot, not talk, but shoot. You're a small arms repairman, Mike. That's what you're going to be doing, and it's not going to be a peaceful place at all. After Philippines, we get back on the ship, and we have just overnight we get to Da Nang, and the ship anchors about 200 yards off the coast of Da Nang, and we get in landing crafts, just like in World War II, landing crafts. Normandy, the door drops down, and all hell. So you're joking, kind of, and you're trying not to just go friggin' crazy. You're in like sardines packed in this landing craft, and then just as we're getting closer to the shore, we're about halfway to the shore, live fire starts coming over the top of our landing craft, and it puts the fear of God in you really, really quick, and then the guy driving the landing craft, he says, "Oh, don't worry, you guys. He never hits anything. He's just scaring you." And a few minutes after that, the door drops, and there's lights like this. And I thought it was in Hollywood. And it was 12 midnight. And so you walk off, you get into these cattle trucks, and they took us back to took us south to Chulai, where we made our battalion headquarters right across from brigade headquarters. 198th Brigade was on the airport side of Highway 1, and our battalion was across the street from Highway 1, across the street from 198th Brigade, and we everything was fine. And then about 30 days, 90 days, about 90 days into our being there in Chulai, we get orders to move to Duck Pho, which is up in the hills above Chulai and the coast there, and overlooking a river. And it's supposed to be where Viet Cong go across, so we'll call in where they're at, and artillery will take them out. And I get guard duty assigned to me, and at lunchtime, wait a minute. When we were going up there, we took a convoy. I missed the convoy, but I didn't miss it. I told my sergeant that I would go up the next day on the airplane, and C-24, C-29, I think, and B-29. And I went up the next day and on the plane just with some other supplies, and my buddies were running down this dirt road saying, "Hey, Cates, you're alive, you're alive." I said, "Sure." "Well, the captain thinks you were killed in action, and he wrote a letter to your mom." And I don't know if he sent it yet. I went to the command post bunker right away, and the captain was yelling at me and so forth. Where you been, Gates? Where you been? What a screw up. And I go, hey, I told my sergeant that I was coming up the next day with the rest of the supplies because I'm part of the supply program here. And he tore up the letter right then in front of me. He hadn't sent it yet. But wait a minute. I was supposed to be dead. That's why the letter was written. But I wasn't. So everything's great. So at lunchtime the next day, I'm supposed to pull guard duty. Two guys and black young man, they're all three friends, and I was pretty introverted and wanted to make friends, and so they said, let Billy Boy, the black man, go tonight with us. They did alcohol, and lots of alcohol and drugs and so forth, and I didn't do that stuff. And I said, no, and they finally convinced me. I said, okay, I'll go tomorrow night, you go tonight. You be with your buddies. And about 4 o'clock that day, heard some gunfire and so forth, and seems to be that a friend of mine said, Kate, you're lucky. A sniper opened up and killed everybody on the helicopter, except Billy Boy, that ran from the helicopter and was cut down by the M60 ammo going off in the fire of the helicopter. So everybody was killed. Yeah, boy, wow. Do you feel guilty? Wait a minute. There's two roads to take. I'm saying this to myself. 2 roads to take, Mike. You can You can take the high low road or the low road. Low road is drugs and alcohol and just die right here. Couldn't do that. Everything I knew was to live for him, them, but particularly him, and survive and come back and live for him and me and so forth and so on. And, over the next several years, I would think, wait, maybe I'm black inside. I'm him. I'm Billy Boy. I'm not Kate's. And to myself. And I go, oh, no. You keep it all try to control that kind of stuff and as best you can and put it in the back of your brain and kind of departmentalize things and memories. And so I did that, and seems to be 2 days after that, we found out that the colonel in charge of our battalion had falsified the orders to move our base camp from Chulai to Duc Pho. It was all for naught. And you again, this is war. You just shake it off. You're pissed. And at that time, death is different. Death wasn't like it is here. You put it in another department in your brain, and death happens. Shortly after you're in Vietnam, there's a way to figure out how long your life expectancy is every day. And sometimes you're in a minus. You're supposed to be dead. And depending on where you're at, what you're doing. And so, again, you figure it out, but then a few times, and then you put that off and you don't think about it anymore, even though you know that life can end in a breath. And so about 30, 60 days after that experience, we were back at battalion headquarters across from brigade at the Chulai airport. And first sergeant comes up to me and says, hey, Cates, I have orders for you. You're going in the infantry. You're going to be a medic. I go, no. One of our buddies, Jackson, black young man, I'd only spent like 90, 100 days with him, and we were just acquaintances. And he got letters from the first sergeant. He said, okay, first sergeant. He went. We heard a week later he lost one of his legs, stepped on a landmine the first day out of the helicopter, and went stateside. Never heard from him the rest of my life. And but that stuck in my mind. When I got the orders, I say, wait a minute, I don't like this picture. It doesn't have a good ending, maybe. And so I go, okay. I take the papers, and I go, Mike, you're going to go to brigade headquarters, and you're going to make an appointment with the colonel in charge of brigade, and tell him, convince him. I went down and made the appointment, and the next morning I went in, and the colonel says, what are you here for, Gates? And I said, I got these orders from the first sergeant that says I'm going to be a medic. I was trained to repair weapons, not people. It's a suicide mission. He said, okay, I understand. He changed my orders back so I would stay in the 1st of the 14th Artillery as a small arms repairman and supply sergeant assistant. I gave the orders back to the first sergeant. I said, hey, not going. I'm still going to be here. Pissed off the first sergeant so much, he didn't talk to me for 3 or 4 weeks. It was just an unusual situation. Most of the time, probably during the Vietnam War or other wars, the recruit would just go off and do what he's told. But somewhere in speech communication classes before Vietnam, I had learned from Dr. Becker, most influential professor I ever had in college before or after Vietnam, and taught me to speak up for myself and saved my life. And not only that time, but remember with talking to Billy Boy and his friends, I had to reach inside myself because I was really introverted at that time.
I feel like you're about to get into this, but why did you enlist in the first place? Like, what was your mind?
Oh, I got drafted. I got a draft notice my 3rd year in junior college, and I was an F student, -12. Had no appreciation for life or education, and just kind of floating through life, and date and work, and go to college because my dad wanted me to go to college, and no purpose. And then got the draft notice, and my older brother was already in the Marine Corps Reserves. So I said, oh, I have 10 days to do anything to go into the military, any branch, so I'll go there too. And talk my younger brother into going in with me to the Marine Corps. So we'll go through boot camp together. Didn't happen that way. I got a second letter that after I got sworn in with my younger brother down at Los Alamitos Air Station in Seal Beach, California, that we'll be going in the Marine Corps, both of us, and be here for induction on such and such date, or you get a $10,000, 10 years in prison, and fine, and 10 years in prison. I said, hey, Bruce, I'll be there. I never went there because I got a second letter that said, you were technically drafted before you enlisted in the Marine Corps, Cates, Mike, and you're going into the Army. And so my brother and I never understood why I didn't end up going with him. And so I got drafted and went to Fort Ord, and that was a weird experience. At Fort Ord, we got quarantined for meningitis, and Jerry Lewis's son, after 2 weeks of the 6 weeks, he was sent home because he was sick, and with that and flu, and that was kind of strange. But then we have fights in our where we slept, barracks. Every night at 12 o'clock, Black and Latino would fight, and it would be a period, and Black young men that were on basketball teams, they would that was an out of Vietnam by being on the Army basketball team. And in the early part, I thought, my gymnastics, I'd be on the gymnastics too. I didn't know about West Point. I just came from the San Fernando Valley. It was all rural. I had no idea what was out there and how you go to college and you play on the teams and so forth. Nothing like that.
So you said a couple things. Made me think about some of the things you told me before we stepped on screen. Like you said, like how before you had no purpose, and you mentioning gymnastics now. So for like my last question, like I would love to get into like what life was like coming back and like where you are. Like,
Well, one thing I didn't mention to you was was supposed to die before Vietnam too. That was the first time. I was hit by a car going 65 in a 35 zone in Canoga Park, far west end of the valley, in 1959, and fractured skull, concussion, severed everything in my left arm, and somehow my body and mind were put back together, and then finally good enough to be drafted.
So how would like all this?
That'll come back in a second when I tell you about Broadway Jim.
Yeah.
So eventually, eventually, I get back. Well, when I was in Hong Kong, I figured out by watching other people take R&R, out of country R&R and in country, that you could hook the two together, and you could take a week in Hong Kong and then come back and to Cam Ranh Bay and take another week. And I did that, and while I was in Hong Kong, I did a lot of stuff that I had never done before, because I remembered the first week or two we were there in Chulai at our battalion headquarters. We have bunkers around the perimeter. There was a young man that, just a great young man. He was pulling guard duty at 12 a.m. and he was going home on the plane at 7 a.m. He had done his tour. Sniper takes him out at about 2 a.m. He had done his tour. You don't know when you're going. You don't know when you're coming back, if you're coming back. It only takes a second for something bad to happen. And so you live every moment to the fullest you can. And remember, a lot of the troops there were 18, 17 to 20. I was 20. I turned 21 as I was coming back. And I felt like an old man. But the point is, living and dying, you never knew when it was going to happen, or if it was your numbers up. And you put the numbers each day on your helmet, and until you get to 365. And when you get into the 60s, you become more religious than you ever thought you could be. And because you're just praying all the time to come back. And so I get back, and I had the most unusual experience. I land at Fort Lewis, Washington. I'm on the plane. They ask, anybody want to re-up? You could have heard a pin drop. $10,000, re-up. No way. Everybody is silent. Everybody's thinking, no way. Thank you very much. Door. Open the door. We're getting out. Everybody got out, kissed the ground, and went off to the bungalow, because people, the sergeant on the plane said, if you can type your orders, you can get out earlier. We got off the plane, and everybody kissed the ground. Then we went on to the bungalow, where we were going to type our orders, because we had typing experience and wanted to get out earlier. And I'm sitting there typing, and I hear footsteps, and I turn around, and it's my cousin. He's the captain in charge of my discharge from the Army. Mickey, it's you. his first sergeant with him, grabs me, puts me in a bear hug, and Mickey says, the captain says, Sergeant, he's my family. He's my family. And our family had never told Mickey, the captain there in the Army, that I was over there, as his younger brother was there also. And funny how family back here had no idea of, it was like we were cut loose and we were just floating in Vietnam. And when you come back, go right to home. First morning up, hey, Daryl, I'll tell you about what, oh, it's okay. It's okay, you don't have to, thanks. They didn't want to know anything about what I did or what happened.
I would like to ask one last question. Now that you're talking about coming home,
Yeah.
what piece of advice would you give to other veterans coming home or just going through?
Jeepers. I didn't come home until 50 years later. It's an unusual question because I didn't do what everybody else did. I became Mike Cates in his 4th year of college, junior college. I was starting with a blank slate and an appreciation for life and education that nobody else on campus had. I had been born again, so to speak. And that was, I pretended like I wasn't a veteran. That was the 60s. I don't know, maybe it's different now. I'm not sure if it is or not. I've met veterans from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they seem different to a degree, but the same too, because they don't want to talk about anything. Now, period. And I just didn't talk about it. Girlfriends didn't know I was a veteran. Why tell them? I looked kind of young at that time and fit into the groups and so forth and so on. I talked about it in some poetry writing classes and theater classes, but other than that, I never really pushed out that I was a veteran, Vietnam veteran, because remember there was Amerasians, stories about Amerasians, the American soldiers making babies all the time. And boy, I didn't want to be messed up with that situation, because nobody was there. Nobody knew what I had to go through, or we had to go through as the American soldier over there. And it's so complicated of a situation in a war zone. And I was watching how all that stuff worked out with Amerasians. Well, that all happened in World War II and Korea and everywhere else. But nobody talked about it because we won. When you lose effing big time. All the other doesn't count. It's the ending that counts to the American people and the other people in the world, to the most part. And that's why what happened a month ago in Afghanistan. Losers, everybody stands up, loser. But I sat down, I was just maybe a winner. I was imperfect, but I wasn't a loser. But now I'm a loser. And that was really, really different. It's really hard and it's unexplainable to the veteran coming from a war zone, giving so much. And remember, what is that fear of you dying every minute of every day for your whole tour? And then some guys, out of their appreciation for America, they sign up for a second. Well, in Vietnam, most seconds led to a dead end, psychologically or physically, or both. Now in Afghanistan and Iraq, similar situation.